Julian Assange being investigated for dubious claims of assault on women. The investigation was dropped at one point. It was reopened. He spent, 7 years in the embassy because he told us the moment he steps out, they will arrest him and try to deport him to the United States. It was denied by everyone. There's no secret grand jury against Julian Assange. Journalism is protected under the First Amendment. And then sure enough, what happened? Julian Assange has now served all of his time. He should be free to go, but instead he's locked up waiting extradition to the U.S. for, I believe, around 18 or so charges. And the question I have then for many Trump supporters is, after everything that Assange did exposing so much of the corruption from the DNC and those Democrats, with the praise from Trump and other people on the right, where is he now? Will Donald Trump do right by Julian Assange? There are certainly some people who believe that once Assange is extradited to the U.S., he's going to get a hero's welcome, or at the very least, a slap on the wrist and be let go. And I do not believe that will be the case. As we can see with the impeachment inquiry, I'll put it this way. Impeachment shows us, what did we learn today? Okay, if you missed it, and I'll probably go into greater detail tomorrow. When the Republicans were asking Vindman, who did you tell about this? He said, I told George Kent. And they said, who else did you tell? I will not reveal the identity of the whistleblower. And everyone said, what? Nobody asked you to do that. We're asking who you told. And they said, the intelligence community is essentially immune from any exposure or whatever. Vindman wouldn't release the name of the intelligence community official he spoke to because it could out the whistleblower, they say. So once again, the intelligence community is protected from all transparency at public hearings under the House Intelligence Committee. I tell you this, I get it, Adam Schiff's the chairman, but if we can't even get to the bottom of this in public inquiries from the Intelligence Committee, yeah, we know the game that's being played. And does Donald Trump have the ability to actually do anything to stop or say it? I don't think so. Now look, it's entirely possible Trump's just a dick and he's not going to help Assange because he doesn't care. Or it's entirely possible the president doesn't have nearly as much power as people think they do, and I think that's fair to say. I don't know if Trump would want to help Assange, and I kind of feel like, my view of the president is that he's, I don't know the right way to put it, because I don't want to say that he's overtly selfish, right? I certainly think he's self-driven. He knows what he wants to do. I certainly think Trump wants to help America, and I certainly think he does not care about Julian Assange. I think he got what he needed from WikiLeaks. It helped him. That's the end of it. It doesn't mean that Trump doesn't care about anybody, but he certainly doesn't care about Assange, in my opinion. Now, I could be wrong. But from everything that's happened so far, let me try and be a bit more fair. It's entirely possible Trump knows that if he says anything at this point, they'll accuse him of Russia and whatever, and he's got to be very, very careful. He's treading on thin ice. But that just shows you, that lends itself to my other point. That basically, the deep state, whatever you want to call it, the intelligence agencies, these individuals can completely undermine Trump through nefarious means very, very easily. In which case, Assange is screwed. That's it. Now, look, man, Assange is not a perfect individual. There are certainly things to question him about. Colbert did an interview with him a long time ago and questioned editorialization of the leaks he was putting out. And I think Assange is a partisan actor himself. But he's doing journalism. Now, they're trying to say he was hacking computers. You know what, man? Let me read this story from the Daily Wire. The investigation in Sweden is dropped. They say Swedish prosecutors have dropped an investigation against WikiLeaks co-founder Julian Assange dating back to 2010. The controversial Australian is currently serving 50 weeks in jail in London for breaching his bail conditions after being forcefully removed in April from the Ecuadorian embassy in London, where he'd been holed up since 2012 in an attempt to avoid extradition to Sweden. No, to avoid extradition to to Sweden, because he was concerned that once he was in Sweden, they'd extradite him to the U.S. Now, I think it's fair to point out the UK has an extradition treaty with the U.S. as well, but, whatever. Assange was accused of misconduct by two different women, one accusing him of forceful, assault, and the other accusing of, I'll be careful about here. And I also think this reporting is factually inaccurate. I do not believe he was ever accused of rape. Following a 2010 conference in Stockholm involving WikiLeaks, Assange, now 48, has consistently denied the allegations, maintaining that it was consensual and that he was only avoiding returning to Sweden because he feared extradition to the U.S. This is a complicated story, but I believe Daily Wire is wrong. My understanding is that Assange was accused of not using a condom, that it broke, and that in Sweden that constitutes assault. Sweden dropped their investigation in 2017, though they did. Federal prosecutors reopened the case after Assange was finally dislodged from the embassy, where he had sought refuge for 7 years. And that was the pretext for why they did it. And now they're dropping it, showing everything Assange said about what was going to happen was right. And I think the real issue is that journalism is forbidden. Assange is not perfect. Assange has done things worthy of criticism. But Assange is essentially doing what most news outlets do. But we can see this. The only journalists that are allowed to function in the US are those that do exactly what the establishment wants them to do. But if you're John Solomon, for instance, and you come out and say there's evidence of Ukrainian wrongdoing and interference in the election, they'll call you a conspiracy theorist. They'll run smear after smear after smear, and they'll try to do everything to destroy you. Assange got the worst of it. Assange got locked up essentially for 7 years, and he's still locked up today, even though this was all BS. They say the reason for this decision is that the evidence has weakened considerably due to the long period of time that has elapsed since the events in question, the Swedish prosecution authority said in a statement Monday, as reported by BBC. After conducting a comprehensive assessment of what has emerged during the course of the preliminary investigation, I then make the assessment that the evidence is not strong enough to form the basis for filing an indictment. Such utter BS. I would like to emphasize that the injured party has submitted a credible and reliable version of events, person stressed. Her statements have been coherent, extensive, and detailed. However, my overall assessment is that the evidential situation has been weakened to such an extent that there is no longer any reason to continue the investigation. Man, how funny. How funny that for the longest time, Julian Assange was a hero on the left, up until he started exposing the DNC and Hillary Clinton, etc. All of a sudden, then, those that claimed to support the principled actions of WikiLeaks now were upset by it. And this is something I experience and fully expect to experience in the future. That during Occupy Wall Street, they loved what I was doing up until I turned the camera on them and exposed them for wrongdoing. See, that no one really likes journalists. And this goes for everybody, left, right, center, top, down, whatever. People on the right, they love to hear what I have to say when reality is on their side. But I believe in the next few years, maybe after Trump, it'll invert. And I'll have all the people on the right saying, whatever. But I will say this. The individuals on the left who did like what I was doing have been pushed out and are kind of on the right now. A lot of Occupy Wall Street people are now Trump supporters. So maybe it's not necessarily the left or right. I think it might be that principled individuals respect journalism even when it proves them wrong. And for the time being, that's on the right. There's, the people on the right have no problem having open inquiry and discussions and debates, even if they end up looking wrong in the process, because it gives, I think for the most part, the people who are willing to accept they're wrong have a moral advantage. Because they say, listen, I know I'm not the smartest person. I know I'm not always right. But, and that I'm showing you that I'm acting in good faith. Right now, the left is not. They hate Julian Assange, even though he provided for them so much back in the day. He was a hero. Today, he's a pariah. BBC notes that prosecutors also held a news briefing in Stockholm saying that the decision to drop the inquiry had been taken after interviews with 7 witnesses in this case. In addition to the assault charges, Assange was also accused of molestation and unlawful coercion. The investigations into those charges were dropped in 2015 due to statute of limitations. But we get it. Maybe he did something wrong. I'm not saying the guy's completely innocent. I'm saying he's a guy. I'm saying he did journalism, and he was railroaded after doing a lot of important work. I don't care if you're a Republican. I don't care if you're a Democrat. If you're doing wrong, I want to know about it. Now, it's possible that Assange was doing things because he's a political actor. Fine, whatever. But news organizations do that all the time. So why is he the one who's facing, the brunt of this? Hopefully, and I'll tell you what, I don't know if it'll happen, but I would love to see, if Trump is reelected, the complete commuting of the charges against Julian Assange, a full pardon should he be convicted, etc. Look, again, I will stress, I don't think the guy is completely innocent. But there's a fine line between allowing a government to imprison someone, even a foreign citizen, for doing journalistic acts and, let's put it that way. Listen, and criminal activity, right? If Julian Assange was crossing that line, fine, we can bring that up. But we have to tread very carefully because like any group, allowing the government the power today means someone else will wield that power tomorrow, and they will wield it against you. It's Julian Assange today, and it's the journalists you like tomorrow. John Solomon is uncovering a lot of information about Ukraine, and they hate him for it. Don't be surprised if they come after him in similar ways. And if we allow the government to do this, if we allow the United States to go after journalists because they don't like the fact their secrets are being leaked, we got a problem. I'll tell you what the problem is, CIA. It's not Julian Assange. It's you got leakers. So how about instead of punishing the people who are doing their job, which is protected by the Constitution, which you're supposed to be defending, you go after those who are disloyal to you and you figure out who's leaking and you try and stop it at that point. To all the whistleblowers who find real malfeasance, good on you for exposing it. The CIA is not an immutable object. They're not a perfect, holistic government agency here to protect everybody. That's not the case. They do wrong same as anybody else, and they should be held accountable. And if that means a whistleblower, so be it. So you got real problems then. The more people in government, the more leaking, and I admit that could be bad for the US. But taking it out on Assange and other journalists and organizations, that's insane. I'm not confident Trump's going to do anything to help Assange or otherwise, and I think, truth be told, all branches of government love the idea that if they want to, they can accuse a journalist of being a conspiracy theorist, partisan actor, foreign agent, whatever, and lock you up. And you know what? The other side will defend it. That, to me, is what's scary. Whatever. We'll see what happens. They say Assange's legal team issued a statement reiterating the claim that the reason he refused to return to Sweden was not because he feared the allegations, but because of the threat of extradition to the U.S. You get the point. He issued a statement saying that, I'll leave it there. I don't know. Let me know what you think. Am I wrong? Do you think Trump will do anything for this guy? Or do you think Trump is going to try to protect what he has? And it's complicated. I've talked to some people who are big Trump supporters who told me that they think Trump's abandoned Assange outright. Whatever. I'll see you on the next segment in a few minutes.